Okay guys, so I'm doing voiceover here again. You might hear pauses of me not talking. That's just because I'm pausing the microphone. But all I'm doing right here is I want to get a large chunk of this October Afternoon Witch Hazel paper because it is one of my favorite patterns in the collection and I want it to sort of be the star of the layout here. And for all of the piece of papers on this layout, I use my Tim Holtz distressing tool to distress all of the edges, but you'll see after a while I do it off camera because it was making a mess of my desk. As soon as I adhere that piece of paper down to the bottom of my layout, which is the opposite that it was on my inspiration layout, it was on the top, I decide to use black thread to sew the paper on, so I only put adhesive kind of in the middle of the paper, that way I could sew around the edges without gunking up my sewing machine. After the piece was sewn on, I just sort of used my fingers to manipulate the edges of the paper to kind of rough it up and make it look a little worn and tethered and lifted. I just thought that that was kind of a good look to go with these photos of her with the pumpkin. And so you'll see me just doing that here. Then I'm just sort of finding the layout of these photos and where I want them to go. And then I end up cutting off the white edging around the photos since these are Instagrams. So once I've cut the edges off these photos, I know I want the full body shot to sort of lay over the photo of her just with her face. I don't really mind that the pumpkin's being covered because I just want to focus on her, her facial expression. Now I'm just taking a tag and that Jenny Bolin die cut and I'm distressing the edges, and then you'll see me use some black soot distress ink to ink them up. So once those two little layering components are inked up and distressed the way that I want them, I start focusing on the different papers that I pulled and how I want to layer them. Like I said, I wanted this background paper to sort of be the star, so I knew that that black paper with the little white stars on it was just going to just give a little hint of an accent, but I didn't want it to sort of overtake the paper. And then I realized that the background of that paper could also be a good layering element because it just kind of looks like a ledger paper. So you'll see me cutting those two papers up and the chevron paper to size. When I'm cutting paper to layer, I don't really all the time get out my Fiskars rotary cutter just because it doesn't have to look exact, especially when you plan on distressing the edges. So I just use a normal pair of like kitchen scissors to cut around it. And this is where the base of my basic design sort of comes together. I just start taking some of the design papers that I had cut apart and that manila tag from Staples and also the Jenny Bolin paper. And I'm sort of just seeing how I want everything layered to be cohesive underneath the photographs. And I'm sort of planning all of that to be on the right-hand lower side of the layout. So I'm just slowly putting all these components together to see kind of how I want them all to meld. I was really happy to be able to use craft cardstock as the background of this layout. I've been using a lot of either wood grain patterns in the backgrounds of my layouts or avalanche cardstock, so I was missing that craft component that I used to always use, and I feel like autumn, fall type Halloween layouts are a good way to incorporate craft again into your design or aesthetic. So this was sort of my plan for this layout, was to have the designer papers be able to stand out. I think that if they were on a stark white background, they wouldn't look as autumn or fall looking. I think that that craft brings that natural element back into it. So I knew I wanted that manila tag, shipping tag for the part where the string normally is. I knew I wanted that to show, and I wasn't sure if I was going to be adding twine to it or not, and I didn't end up doing that, but I just think that that brown element of the part that covers the hole looked better sticking out. So now I'm just sort of taping or using my ATG gun, excuse me, I can't talk, to adhere everything down, and then eventually I'll be adhering my photos as well. To bring out that craft element that's on the background, I pulled some of those Maya Road craft tags and inked the edges in black soot, and I put a strip of 3 down at the bottom and then 1 in the upper left-hand corner of the photos. And I think also adding those craft tags, since they have black ink on them, really brought out that star pattern in the background and sort of the accents on her shirt. So it was just a nice simple touch. I don't like to have any hard edges, so you'll see me add some washi tape to sort of smooth out the edges and sort of ground the photos. I typically use black soot distress ink when I'm inking the edges of things in black. I just find that it goes on easier and dries a lot quicker than if I was to use a dye ink. So I kind of wanted to dirty up those tickets a little more so that they had more of kind of a Halloween feel. I don't want this to be too themey Halloween, but I want it to sort of have that vibe. And then you'll see me using a kind of like a teal and cream airmail stripe washi tape to sort of, I don't know, anchor those tags so that they're not just sitting out in the open. And at this point, I'm feeling like it's too perfect of a rectangle on the bottom, so I'm looking for something else to sort of layer on that bottom piece so that it's not such a perfect linear line. And I also decide that one side of that star paper was just sticking out a little too much for my own liking. Once I have all the basic papers laid out and the washi tape and those little craft tickets, I'm going to start looking at my things that I pulled to embellish. And I knew right away I wanted to use that chip and stick pumpkin. And I don't know that I'm too happy with the way that I used it in the end. I just feel like there was nothing else on that chip and stick to really go with the layout. So that pumpkin's sort of floating on its own, and you'll see that in the final product. But here I'm just picking out some embellishments, and then I also get a border strip from the word sticker sheet, and it's kind of like a green stripe, and I ink that up with black soot too, and I think I cut it into 3 separate pieces and lay them on various places on the layout. Adding that border strip with the green color sort of added another color element to the story. My main paper that's in the background was pretty much orange, yellow, and like a teal and black color. So I did want to add a little bit of that green because I knew that there were going to be other places in the layout where I wanted to utilize that color. So that's sort of the way that I did that. So you'll see me sort of laying everything where I want it. And like I said, that pumpkin just, I don't know, I feel like it's sort of just floating in air, but it was too, in the right hand side there, I felt like that border strip was sort of just floating and it needed something to kind of close off the edge, so that's why I put the pumpkin there. And then I added that little green border strip in 3 different areas to do kind of the roll of 3s around the photo and bring your eye around it. And then I decide that everything sort of needs to be inked with black soot distressing to sort of match everything else on the layout. So I go back and I ink everything up. Now I know that I bought those flyers and I knew that there were a few that were very Halloween themed that I wanted to use on this particular layout, since I was a little bit themey on this layout, not too bad. So you'll see me kind of pull the flyers out, those October afternoon flag things, and I start to put together a few of the flags. I knew for sure I wanted to use this green one. That was just a definite, because like I said, I was trying to incorporate that awesome green color that really drew me to this Witch Hazel collection. So I make one out of that, and then I use that triangular orange and cream one, and I know I'm going to put the little October, I think it says October 31, I don't have the layout in front of me, on there, because one said Happy Halloween and one said October 31. And even though these photos weren't taken exactly on Halloween, I wanted to make sure that I remembered that this was sort of her little Halloween onesie that she wore for this photo shoot, because for Halloween she's going to be a little lamb, so that's kind of a delicate, sweet costume and doesn't really go with the witch, spooky, jack-o'-lantern theme. So I'm just sort of figuring out the placement of these. I knew I wanted them to go kind of in that corner because right above the designer paper and to the left of the photos is where I knew my title was going to go. And then in the upper right hand corner of the layout, I was going to add kind of a little cluster to use that Y is for youthful that I showed in my layout prep. I really wanted to get that incorporated in this layout. So I use some, what are they called, foam dots to kind of stick the flags through, and then just stuck them behind the photos. And everything that I adhered down, I only used a few strips of ATG gun because I knew I wanted to lift them to sort of do some layering. I've pretty much settled at this point on using the green and the red flag or banner, but I know I want to incorporate a little bit of blue in this corner too. So I'm trying to find, while there wasn't a flyer in that kit that you could put together on a toothpick, there was sort of a embellishment that could go on one of the flags that was blue. So I sort of just made my own flag out of it because I figured you're not going to see the other side of the paper to know that the flyer didn't fully go around. Boy, sometimes when I do these voiceovers, I feel like I lose my vocabulary, but I think I'm distracted because I can hear my daughter and my husband in the room, and I'm anxious to get it done so that I could go play with them. Anyways, I'm adhering everything down now and sort of committing, and then I am going to decide on what, if any, other embellishments that I want to do. So I decide that I don't like that big gap between the flags and the top of the photo, so I go in search of the products that I pulled to put a little file folder tab, and I think in the 9 to 5 collection I found sort of like a bluish teal colored one that was blank. And so I just get one of my Amy Tangerine, no, I think I used my Dear Lizzie Neapolitan date stamp and just stamped not the date but the word remember. So I get that where I want it, and then I go grab my tiny attacher and sort of just staple it haphazardly to the top of the layout. Since it perfectly went around her head, I wasn't too concerned with the staples going directly into the photo because they just went into the background. And the reason I didn't stamp the date was because I put that October 31 on it. I didn't want it to confuse someone looking at my album. It's really not important what the date was. I just wanted to know that it was seasonably appropriate for Halloween, and I just wanted to remember that moment in that photo shoot because there were plenty of other pictures that I plan on, documenting in her album. So, it wasn't really important to me to know the exact date that photo shoot occurred. So now I think I'm getting ready to sort of make my area where my title's going to go, and I know I want to ground it putting some washi in the background, and also to draw your eye from the washi around the photo to that upper left hand corner. I also added some very skinny orange tape that I had gotten from Sherry T-Share in Japan and Iraq a few months ago to sort of bring that orange color up, and I knew right away that the main word in the title, the word spook, was going to be put on there with those Amy Tan letters, and that I was going to sew through them using my black thread. And I've never sewn through chipboard thickers before, but I know I've seen other people do it, like, what's her name? Glue Stick Girl from Studio Calico Design Team. So I knew it could do it because I think she has the same sewing machine that I have, and actually it worked out quite fine, so I was happy to add that little element in there. So once I have the word on, you'll see me bust out the sewing machine and sort of get that sewn down. I apologize that I don't take the time to change my camera angle so that you guys can actually see the sewing, and oftentimes I take the sewing out of my video so that you're not even seeing it at all, but I just find it boring. I mean, everyone knows what sewing looks like, so I don't really spend that much time showing you guys. And now I'm in search of smaller letters or alphabets to make the rest of my title because everything I pulled is much larger and I don't like the way that it looks. I finally settle on those gray, not sticky keys, mini markets from October Afternoon, and you'll see me put them, the title's supposed to be Too Cute to Spook, and I just changed my mind about it. I find this lovely teal color to write the word cute on there with the sassafras alphas, and then I just don't like the way that they look with the two. So you'll see me lift them back up and put them back on my sticker sheet. Then I pull these kind of gold basic gray alphas, and I like the way those look in the caps, and then I use some black ones to write the word to up the side of spook. And I always use kind of either my piercing tool or my X-Acto knife to sort of adjust my letters and move them where I want till I'm happy with the layout. I considered sewing through the too cute as well, but I kind of liked, I don't know, the colors to be exposed and not to just have black thread through them. So I didn't end up doing that, and I knew I was going to embellish around them with stars and other things later from, you know, the other embellishments that I pulled. So I sort of left it the way it was. And I think you see me off camera for a second or two here because I was trying to find a period, and I don't know, I'm so weird about just leaving the title hanging. You'll see a lot of mine always have some sort of punctuation, but I had a difficult time finding a period and that stuff that the stripes went the same way. So I get that down, and then I start pulling those black and orange rhinestones, and I know that I want those sort of scattered around the layout along with stars. And I don't usually mix and match that many groupings of things, like either it's pearls or wood veneers or whatever, but this time I ended up doing both, and I sort of just scattered them haphazardly around the layout, but in the end I really liked the way that it turned out. And there's really no rhyme or reason here. I tend to group things in threes, and I just threw a couple orange ones down, threw a couple black, kind of all over the layout. I really didn't stick to too many scrapbooking rules when doing this. I just knew I wanted them clustered all over, and then also around the title, and then I do kind of an upper right hand corner cluster of stuff. But you'll see I didn't realize at some point that my video camera battery died, so you missed the last like 3 minutes of me making the layout, which is the upper right hand corner, but I did take still shots for you to see in the end. I figured posting the rest of the video was better than nothing. So after I make these clusters of those little crafteroo rhinestones, I end up taking those wood veneer stars and putting those around the layout as well. And I just left them the raw color for the most part because I thought it looked fine anyway. Since there was craft, I don't think naked wood looked any worse. So those kind of just go along with the clusters that I made using those rhinestones. And you'll see me gluing everything out using Tombow Mono multi-liquid glue. I usually use the clear type of glue for this, or glossy accents, but both were clogged and I didn't feel like fussing with them and unclogging them. So just in case you're wondering, even though this is white when you put it on, it does dry clear, so it really was no problem if it seeped out a little. It, you know, clears right up when it's drying. I probably could have cut some of this gluing of stars down out or edited it because I'm sure it gets boring, I mean, watching me glue 20 stars down, but you'll see me kind of lift the layout up, and I'm just taking a final look. I try to just see, it's so hard to see when it's just laying on your desk if it's aesthetically pleasing or if it's missing anything. So I'm pretty satisfied with it at this point, and I start working on that upper right hand cluster before my battery dies. So the first thing I do is the back side of one of the papers that I used, I believe it might be that star paper, had kind of a teal, oh no, it's the plaid paper, had kind of that teal color. So I used my small scallop Fiskars border punch and just border punch a little strip of that. And then I do add a few handmade banners with some of the other paper, and I just layer everything together and put that youthful sticker on, and then throw some stars and wood veneers over it. Then I also found a star on the chip and stick piece that brought that green up to that corner. So you'll see me also lay that down as well. And that's about it, guys. I didn't realize my camera went off, so you sort of missed the last, I think, 3 minutes of it. But just take a look at the final photos and enjoy. Thanks.